What's up, guys? Adam Green here with No More News. Thank you all for joining me. Today, Monday, September 9th, 2024, got a monster show with you guys and a very pertinent, relevant guest with a insider, unique perspective on Russian propaganda. We're also going to talk about Trump claiming that he's going to save Israel and Israel won't exist if he doesn't win. Going to be a huge one. This show's only made possible thanks to you guys and your support, your Odyssey Super Chats, your Rumble Rants, subscriptions on both of those, Subscribestar, the P.O. Box. All of that is below. Every dollar helps. I can't do it without you. Tons of time and research went into this one, and it's going to be a doozy. And I feel like we got sort of a unique, it's almost a fringe perspective online in the kind of circles around us. Thank you for being here once again, Richard Spencer.
Yes, thanks for having me on, Adam. So we're a fringe perspective in the sense that we're not financed by Russia.
Well, we're not sweeping this under the rug. We were saying that there's Russian influence all over alt media, and now it's came out, and now it's like we're still the bad ones for pointing it out, taking a little victory lap.
Yeah, they're doing the goalpost moving, which is like, oh yeah, let's talk about AIPAC. Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about AIPAC. I do agree with that, but that's basically a deflection. I mean, it's irrelevant. AIPAC, well, Jewish influence and Russian influence are surprisingly related things, but it's irrelevant whether AIPAC is good or bad, powerful or weak. This is what it is. And yeah, I've seen that line of attack of let's talk about AIPAC. All that means is they don't want to actually talk about Russian influence and their friends online who are being paid to spread propaganda. What's the other one? Oh, it's not a big deal, or we need to support Lauren, or she would have said all of this anyway.
They didn't know, yeah. Also saying that they're victims and none of them knew, but it's seeing what they're saying and posting, that's definitely questionable.
It is questionable. And even if they would have done all of this anyway, it still becomes questionable. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, they have to ask themselves, like, why me? I'm talking about civil war all the time. Sometimes in a analytical, objective ways, very often in a salacious, if not hysterical way. Does that say something about me that Russia is promoting me? I mean, that's the question they should ask, but of course they won't.
Well, we're going to get into how I think it's the guy that wrote Vatnik Soup or something. He writes about how Russia likes to have agents and have them not even know sometimes that they're paid, but they boost certain voices, and with astroturfing, with bots, with promoting certain ideas. We're going to get into all of that. We've got tons of clips. Basically, we're going to summarize the whole thing and give our commentary on it. And but first, I wanted to get into the Trump. Here's the big viral clip of Trump's latest Israel pandering. Oh, and that's the other thing. We always criticize AIPAC and Jewish influence in America. So that refutation, that objection doesn't work on us when they say, what about Israel?
Right.
Okay, here's Trump's latest. If he doesn't win, Israel will be gone.
And if I don't win this election, Israel, with Comrade Kamala Harris at the helm of the United States, is doomed. Israel is doomed. That's a tough statement. Israel will be gone. 1 year, 2 years, Israel will no longer exist. I better win.
It's funny because Alex Jones is on Twitter and all the time saying, Israel's not going anywhere. They've got hundreds of nuclear weapons. But then he's saying that. Total contrast.
Yeah, I don't know where to start with this one.
This is why you're a Biden Kamala supporter, because of this right here.
Right.
You don't want Israel to exist,
destroy
apparently.
Israel, and I'll put up with communism if only we could get that big one in. Yeah, I mean, it is a funny thing. I put forth on Twitter a notion of Spencer's Law. Now, I stole this law. Unlike some other people, I always give credit. I stole this law from actually a listener and supporter on my Substack when we were talking about this. And that is that the most anti-Semitic people and the most hyper-Zionist people will always vote for the same candidate. Mm-hmm. maybe not a scientific law. I'm sure you can find some exceptions, but it's remarkably true. And it's especially true with Donald Trump.
Yep.
So Nick Fuentes, I don't know how the Groyper War is going, how many shots have been fired or whether they've bunkered down, but he will ultimately vote for Trump. And his career is all about Trump. On the other hand, you have, I don't know, Adam King to pick a figure out of thin air, or various other people who are either Jews, Orthodox Jews, or highly philo-Semitic, say evangelical Christians at the megachurches. They love Trump equally. And I guess the question would be, who's right? Is he a force of anti-Zionism? Does he, in a way, scare the Jews with his populism, the sort of white nationalism that is still a part, to some degree, about his, to some degree, with his campaign? I mean, remember, at the same speech, he said, we're going to do a massive deportation, a bloody, bloody business, a bloody, bloody story. So there is a sort of, sadistic nationalist quality to Trump and to Trump supporters. So does that scare the Zionists? Does that scare the Jews? On the other hand, he did more for Israel than any president in my lifetime, no doubt. He made me appreciate people who I grew up loathing and criticizing, like George W. Bush, for one, who was actually more fair on this matter than Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, I should add.
Especially Senior. Senior called out the Israeli lobby and also wanted to put conditions on support because of illegal settlements.
Yes. Yeah. And they were talking about illegal settlements back in the early 90s as totally out of control and so on. And look where we are now. So
now Trump's lamenting the fact that Israel doesn't have the control in Congress that they used to have, but elect him and he'll bring it back in. And that's what this is. Israel.
Great again.
Israel. He literally says MEGA. He says make Israel.
Them. No one would touch them. No one would touch them. Now Congress is a bunch of Palestinians. Chuck Schumer, he's a Palestinian, but a weak one. It's just like weird, convoluted. I mean, it is. It is a really crazy phenomenon. I think it probably does express a sort of tension in American society that probably wasn't there when I was a lot younger. That these questions weren't being asked to the degree that they are asked now. Both sides were sort of quiet about their Israeli support. Even George W. Bush during the terror war, it was muted. It wasn't we will, we're going to save Israel. I'm sorry, I haven't gotten my W impression up to snuff. I've been doing Trump for a decade. All of the support of Israel was muted. And in a way, look, the reason why Hamas is powerful in Gaza is a direct result in many ways of George W. Bush, because he wanted Gazans to vote. He sincerely believed his own rhetoric. Maybe he should be praised for that to some degree. He thought that the world is hungering for democracy, and oops, they all vote for Hamas, because he wasn't really, he thought democracy was a solvent, and he wasn't really addressing these, serious intractable problems. But anyway, I think society has dramatically changed. The same tension is still there in the left. There are leftists, some I guess you could call anti-Semitic. Many, many, many more are just profoundly anti-Zionist. I mean, they are absolutely serious about it. And they, too, most of them at least, are going to vote for Kamala Harris. So I think it's just the Spencer's Law is just kind of developing. Spencer's Law that was developed is just kind of expressing a general contradiction in society. But it is definitely real. And we're going to see more of this. We're going to I woke up this morning and was looking on Twitter. They're talking about Haitians eating cats in Ohio or something. And I looked into it just for 5 to 10 minutes. Basically, there was some just clearly mentally ill person who might very well have eaten a cat. Allegedly. And there's 10,000 Haitians in Ohio or whatever. And you can find some videos of people complaining like, we got all these Haitians here. What do we do? They're usually liberals that are like, we want to help these people, but we can't. We don't have the funds. And all I see from all of these conservative slop accounts are AI images of Donald Trump with a machine gun saving cats, or like running away from Haitians, like carrying, like dressed as Rambo while cats are on him. And look, is it funny on some level? And it gets to that just inherent wackiness of Donald Trump. Of course it does.
It's the new Indians. It was like the Indians was the focus the last couple of weeks, and now it's moved on to Haitians, it seems like.
Yeah, but it's ultimately bullshit. You know, I'm sure some Haitian, like in Ohio, did eat a duck in the park or something. I mean, I'm sure you could find such a, almost meaningless singularity of this, like.
Well, it's an example
nightmare.
of how people
but
from like the people from the third world that like come in here, they, like, they live completely differently. So I think that's why people are wanting to highlight it so much.
Right. So he's playing on racism. It's the same fundamental Southern strategy agenda of the Republican Party. It used to be about blacks. We should have a private Christian school because, why? Because you're really religious, right? It's that wink, nod attempt at this. Like Ronald Reagan, I mean, liberals are correct when, first off, Ronald Reagan coined "Make America Great Again," but also that Ronald Reagan was launching his campaign at sites of civil rights movement protests and so on. I mean, the welfare queen, George Herbert Walker Bush, and the Willie Horton ad. It goes on and on and on and on. They always play to this. They push the button of racism and do nothing about it, because
they just like dog whistle a little bit.
It's
to
just
placate.
dog whistling, and their rhetoric is like ill-formed, where there's nothing you can do about it. Look, if someone's eating a duck in a public park, I obviously think they should be like, I don't know, given a citation or something. I mean, that's
not brought here in the first place.
But I agree with that.
Yeah.
But like, what are you gonna do? Like, what does this mean? Or are they good immigrants? Because I could find tons and tons of Hispanic immigrants who are working, washing dishes, doing roofs, mowing lawns. They own a burrito stand. I could find plenty of model migrants of this kind. And so you're setting yourself up to be dunked on because you're focusing on this just outrageous singular act, and they're basically going to show you some stats or plenty of other anecdotes that are myriad of illegal immigrants that aren't doing a lot of harm, basically. I mean, and so and maybe are doing good. So it's just a stupid, like, push button thing. It might very well work, but it's stupid. And the Israel stuff and the, it's going to be a bloody story, I tell you, when we deport these people, all that stuff works together. Because I think a lot of conservatives feel that they're so brave and they're so, outrageous and based that
edgy.
And edgy as hell, that no Zionist would ever work with them or see any use to them. They're based beyond compare. It's like, no, Zionists have been working with evangelicals and fundamentalists for decades now. These are people who think that the Jews are going to convert or die or some combination thereof in the near future. These are people who might even be sort of casually anti-Semitic when they're at home. They might talk about that, Jewish businessman or Jewish car salesman who screwed them over. It's just some of that type of stuff, Jewish bankers or whatever. They will work with them because Jews are intelligent and smart, and they see how they can use these types of salacious emotional appeals towards their ends. So yeah, you're going to see that it's a bloody story. Haitians are eating your cat, all of this shit. And you're going to also hear the, save Israel. I'm the one who did the Golan Heights. Let's not forget that, we moved the embassy. You're going to, it's all works in combination. None of it is contradictory. And the right has to understand that at some point, or we're going to continue to be in this endless hamster wheel of electing racist Zionist candidates like Donald Trump.
We got a huge dono in here from my boy Indomitably Based. Says, so proud of Adam and Richard. Both of you guys have grown greatly in your knowledge and understanding of our people's struggle and been incorruptibly rejecting Israeli-Russian subversion and taking positions that were quite unpopular but have proven far-sighted, anti-Trump, anti-Putin, exposing Jesus. Well put, and I think true. That is what me and Spencer have in common. We're not Trump shills. We see through Trump. We see through the MAGA grifters. We see through Christianity and the Abrahamic religions and the Russian disinformation controlled upside as well.
No doubt.
Another one from Indomitably Based. Some of these figures may have not initially intended to sell out, or may have felt that Russia was truly the lesser of two evils, if for no other reason than many in their circles thought so. Then once they took money, Russia blackmailed them with threat of exposing FARA violations unless they continued. I think that's true as well. And it's so hard to decipher. I mean, it's usually hard to decipher who is like sincere believers of these things just because that's kind of what everybody else is saying. That's the group think like on this side of the internet. Or people like Lauren Chen that are secretly getting funneled money from Russia with this intent.
Yeah, and the best con artist believes his own con. Mm-hmm. And, what is more believable than what butters your bread? So it's human psychology is difficult. We're able to rationalize things to a remarkable degree. Mm-hmm. And so on some level, all of these people are sincere. And that's what makes it so problematic about getting to the truth.
Yeah, like we have the clip of Tim Pool we're going to play later. He says, I don't care if he was getting Russian money. So what? If he thinks they're in the right, what's wrong with taking money to support? They stand up for free speech. That's the way they could rationalize it or something.
Definitely.
Okay, let's get to some of those. Let's see if there's anything good in the rest of this clip.
I better win, or you're going to have problems like we've never had. We may have no country left. It may be our last election. You want to know the truth? People have said that. This may be our last election.
Like
You got to get out and vote. This could be our last election. And if I don't win this election, Israel...
So Israel will be gone. America will be gone. He needs Israel. He needs to win, what?
This is where I also think the liberals are correct, because there's this funny passive aggressive quality to the right at this point, where they demonize their opponents to such a degree, and they become hysterical about the outcome to such a degree that their own supporters are inspired to act. And I think that was 2021 J6 really in a nutshell. Both sides were claiming at the end of the day election interference and a coup. Both sides had the same interpretation, just from different angles, basically. And
they both call each other anti-Semitic too, is one of their main talking points.
And racist. It is very funny. It shows you how hegemonic power operates in our society when both sides accuse the other of this thing. But they say it's going to be the last election. That is gearing people up to do something if Trump does not lose. Period. End of statement. I don't care if I agree with Rachel Maddow on this. I really don't care. I march to the beat of my own drummer, and sometimes Rachel Maddow's right. I mean, it just is what it is. When you hear that and you're a guy who gets all of his news from some crazy Facebook group, and you have some totally understandable anxiety and fears about what is going on in the world, that is going to lead you to act. That is going to make you become kinetic. I mean, the crazy thing about QAnon is that at least in its inception, it was a sort of trust the plan. Like, don't worry, guys. You don't criticize Trump, of course, but you don't really need to do anything because, we got the white hats working behind the scenes, and, the good guys at the NSA are taking out the bad guys at the CIA or whatever the narrative was. I think it was mostly that. But at some point, when you get people, when you push on their religious instinct and you structure Trumpism as a sort of religion, at some people, they become the storm. I mean, days before J6, Steve Bannon said on his radio program, "The storm is here." The last thing that Ashley Babbitt ever said was to paraphrase a Q drop. And she was basically acknowledging, oh, the storm's here. Yeah, we're the storm. We, the people who have been hooked on this all through the pandemic, maybe even earlier, like we're actually the prophecy. And it's just a remarkable thing. But I look at stuff like that, and that is my only conclusion, that Trump is gearing up for something if he does not win. Now, if he wins,
absolutely. There's been other examples of that as well, too.
Yeah.
Of Trump saying stuff like that, for sure. Here's Trump, the newest clip. This is out from the Republican Jewish Coalition. He says, "You're not going to have an Israel if he doesn't win."
If Kamala Harris wins, terrorist armies will wage an unceasing war to drive Jews out of the Holy Land, and you know it. And we've had a great relationship with Israel, but I can say honestly that we got 25% of the vote. We got 26% after 4 years after I did more for Israel than any other.
What is he saying, the Jewish vote?
Yeah, he's so desperate for that 2% Jewish vote. Or is it the big Zionist donors that he's trying to appeal to?
Right. I mean, but what is he saying, 25%? Is he talking about the Jewish vote there?
Yeah, 25% of Jews voted Republicans.
Okay, that's interesting. That's actually higher than I've heard elsewhere.
Yeah, that's why he's touting it. He's touting.
Oh, he's touting it. He's like, so many Jews because I'm good for Israel. Yeah, so he just equates Israel with American Jews. I mean, it's kind of funny. It is kind of weirdly anti-Semitic in a way.
I know. That's why they always call him anti-Semitic as he's groveling to Israel and sucking up to them and pandering.
Yeah.
And this year we're probably around a 50% mark. But I only ask you, who are the 50% of Jewish people that are voting for these people that hate Israel?
So ungrateful.
And don't like the Jewish people. Why are they? Why are they voting? Why? How do they exist? Iran and its proxies will spread bloodshed and death all around the globe. And as she continues to set the world on fire, Kamala Harris will support unlimited migration from terrorist hotbeds into the United States and will totally abandon Israel. You're going to be abandoned if she becomes president. And I think you have to explain that to your people because they don't know it. They have no idea what they're getting into. You're not going to have an Israel if she becomes president. Israel will no longer exist. When I'm president, we will deport the foreign
really selling it
sympathizers and Hamas.
Yeah. He said the same thing when he got the Torah Crown Award with the Israel Heritage Foundation. Yeah. He said, Israel's going to be in big trouble if I don't get elected.
Terrorist hotbeds at the border. Obese Americans enjoying their time in San Antonio never suspected that Hamas would come across the border and blow up their margaritas.
But if something like that does happen, that's all that needs to happen for Trump to decide to attack Iran. Some type of attack that's blamed on Iran. We're already seeing like all the foreshadowing of it. Netanyahu saying that they wanted to assassinate him and they hacked his campaign and all of these things. It's what it's leading to. I think ultimately him getting us in a war with Iran and Russia.
Yes. I've also, to be fair here, I've also heard a lot of this about Kamala as well. The sort of shift in the Democratic Party. I did a monologue on it. Many other people have observed the same phenomenon. That was a neocon speech that Kamala gave. And she actually, she followed it. She was following Leon Panetta, former CIA boss, who spoke before her. I mean, that was an incredible turn of events, actually, of where the Democrats are right now. They are centrist. They put the woke away. They're not going. I mean, they might talk about transsexuals a little bit, but they're just going to mute it, basically. But the degree to which the Democrats are becoming a neocon party, I think, is very interesting. Which is worse, the Republicans as a sort of buffoonish opposition party, and maybe as a extremely belligerent Zionist party. That's a possibility. Or the Democrats who are telling you to your face that we are becoming a neocon party.
Yeah, it's weird. But all that support, all the Democrats supporting like Dick Cheney or any of these hated Republicans coming out against Trump just makes more people like Trump, ultimately, is the way I see it. When all the villains
that riles up his base, no doubt.
So how much of this, like, they've given Trump such a messiah complex that he's the savior of the world, going to save us from World War III, save America, save Israel, save Christianity. And Sheldon Adelson's wife, Miriam, just introduced him by declaring he will save the Jewish people.
Yes.
At the Republican Jewish Coalition a few days ago.
He is our best friend. He will save us.
He will save us.
And I am eagerly waiting for him to enter the White House and to save the Jewish people. They will try to save themselves, but we need America, and we need President Trump, that I am honored to call my friend, and maybe he is honored that I am his friend. So we'll see.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Okay, she's saving him.
It's interesting because he's a Cyrus-like figure in this case. But remember, this well, Adam, Cyrus is also Messiah. Cyrus is also declared to be anointed, the literal word, the literal meaning of Messiah, anointed one. And of course, this is what Jesus is, Jesus Christ. Christ is the Greek version of Messiah. So
and it was a Gentile, the Gentile king that helped them rebuild their temple.
Right. So he released the Jews from the Babylonian captivity and funded and allowed for the building of the second temple. So it's fascinating that she's speaking casually there, but am I wrong? She's using that type of terminology. That's how she's thinking about Trump.
Yeah, they're trying to garner support through Trump, through religion. That's why the Sanhedrin guy that minted the Trump coin says they're hoping to start with the Trump base. That's why Miriam Adelson also said that she wants there to be a biblical book of Trump. They're grooming him as this messianic figure, and it's getting him a cult-like following of Christian and QAnons.
Yeah, you know what that means.
What?
They're ultimately going to kill him.
Right? No, seriously, they'll
I mean,
dispose
kind
of
of
him.
seriously, half joking, half serious. There is a sort of like rising again quality to the assassination attempt.
Absolutely.
I mean, the assassination attempt. I don't go for this knee jerk. The whole thing is faked. I mean, there is plenty there for me to be convinced that Crooks did that, and he missed. So it might just be a sort of synchronicity, I guess. But I don't know. It does play into an existing narrative. Let me just say that.
Do you think the ear thing's a little weird? How his ear appeared to have like no scab, like almost 80-year-old man has all that blood and there's nothing to be seen?
That has struck me as weird. I'm trying to force myself not to go.
I know you don't want to look crazy and say that it's
because there are other
thing.
explanations for that. Maybe he had like a prosthetic or something. I don't know. Or maybe it didn't hit it as much. I saw someone tweeted out that like Evander Holyfield's ear is still damaged. After he was bitten by Mike Tyson in the ring. And yet Trump's ear seems totally fine. It's a little concerning, but I would need to see more.
And what was the need for the huge bandage? What was the need for the huge bandage when it appears to be like nothing? If it just barely grazed him, I mean, he didn't bleed that much. But then he's got the huge bandage on there. That it doesn't add up. Something's fishy, I think.
Yeah, and the simplest explanation is that it's theater. They want to show him as a sort of wounded man coming back, and Look, I've got a few. There are a few little like devils on my shoulder that are starting to question this, but I'm not ready to go strong on that one until I see something that's really convincing.
Right. I agree.
Thank you, President Trump.
Here's him getting asked, why did God, because everybody's saying God saved him on this assassination attempt. For what? Why?
Thank you, President Trump. You've spoken very passionately about how God saved your life, and I'm wondering, have you put much thought into why God saved your life? As in, for what purpose has he been shielding and protecting you?
He wanted to kill firemen.
I don't know if you heard the question. You've spoken about God saving your life. That I've spoken passionately about it. And something happened because that was a miracle. I never looked that way.
Okay. And then he says,
God had something to do with it. It's a miracle, and God, ping. And if I didn't do that, I'm not here with you. So, yeah, God has something to do with it. It's a miracle, and God had something to do with it. And maybe it's we want to save the world. This world is going down. This world is going down. So
save the world. It's just funny because this is August 15th, and then July 16th, a month before at the RNC, Huckabee Sanders also said Trump was saved by God to save the world. And I did a video months before that, April 7th, Trump to save the world. And then now that's literally their campaign slogan, basically. And it was before, too. It wasn't really a prediction. They were saying it. Here's Trump sitting down with Netanyahu, says if he doesn't get elected, that they're going to have World War III, and we're all on the verge of World War III. We don't got to watch that one. Here's the one I wanted to show you. Last one on the Trump thing before we shift over to Russia, which is really the main topic. It's just ongoing. Every week I have to show a little bit of the latest Trump Messiah shit that keeps happening. But here he literally does the meme and says that he's going to make Israel great again.
Frankly, I will keep America safe, and I will work with you to make sure that Israel is with us for thousands of years. We're not going to let go of it. Israel is God. Just remember, make America great again.
What else, Trump?
Frankly, help Israel become great again. Right now, what you're going through is horrible. That you have to
Oi, to the vein. Just unwatch.
Yeah, he literally did the meme. Do you think he's going to win still?
I keep going back and forth on this. I was predicting Trump for the past year, if not more. And the Kamala brat boom was really something. And I also just recognize a sort of demographic and thus democratic reality. And I'm not even necessarily even talking about race here, because that's how conservatives usually formulate it. If all votes are counted and we didn't have the Electoral College, I mean, Democrats would win easily. I mean, that's almost should be your default prediction, is that Democrats could win. George W. Bush won the popular vote in 2004. He also used the Electoral College, perhaps fraudulently, in 2000.
With Roger Stone, I think, was involved with that even.
Roger Stone and the Brooks Brothers Revolt and the Hanging Chads. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to revisit that because I was a lot younger, but it's wild stuff. I do remember it. Pat Buchanan on the ballot had an effect on this, running as the Reform Party. I mean, there's so many twists and turns. We kind of memory hold that to a degree because of 9/11. But it's very hard for Republicans to win overwhelming majorities of the vote. So I think your default position really should be a Democrat. Now, is there something special? Can they pull off something special with Trump? Do they have a sort of, I mean, there's the Electoral College reality that does obviously help them, but is there a sort of intensity that is going to be able to push Trump over the edge? And I think there might be. I need to come out strong on this. The other thing, they're just these little... There are also these tendencies of Democrats to sort of peak in the summer, and as the temperatures drop, as snow starts to fall, I don't know, people look towards a different party. Dukakis was trouncing George Herbert Walker Bush in August of 1992 by, I believe, 15 points in a number of polls. And that turned into maybe not quite a landslide, but a convincing win for Herbert Walker Bush. I'm wondering if something like this is happening. There's a new poll out today where Trump was actually up. The New York Times is fretting about Kamala, her bounce is over, and so on. So I need to just be nailed to the wall in this one. There's the Alan Lichtman thing where he's successfully predicted all these elections outside of 2000 where he predicted Gore to win, but he claims that, Gore did win and so on. I think it's an interesting method that he uses. Don't look at polls at all. Just kind of look at these, what he thinks are indicators of good governance, what I think are indicators of social mood. So I profoundly disagree with him, but I get this sense with him that he's viewed as such a Nostradamus that he's going to have his comeuppance this year, and he's going to he'll be the Nate Silver of 2016. Basically, he'll be the guy that everyone was pointing to give them reassurance. All liberals are pointing to give them reassurance about victory, and that he's going to be scapegoated in a way this year.
And he's saying that Kamala's going to win, and you're saying he's going to be wrong.
So he has 13 keys for the election that are basically a couple of them are personal, like is the incumbent, and it's basically an up-down question about will the incumbent party continue. And a couple of the keys are about charisma. A lot of them are about the economy. Are we in a recession right now? Are we out of one? Has there been a foreign policy success? Has there been a foreign policy failure? And then they're just real structural things like, are they staying the course? Is the incumbent president running for office and so on? He predicts Kamala will have a victory. Also, is there social unrest? And he says there's no social unrest. And I'm not so sure about that. I under his own definition of the term, there has not been social unrest because the campus fights on behalf of Palestine are not as widespread as, say, BLM or, late 60s riots and so on. And I get that, and I think that's a fair thing to say. But I do think that there's something brewing in this country. I think there is a lot of outrage and hatred, and that's always bad for the incumbent party.
Right.
So, yeah, I sort of think Trump's going to win, actually.
I do too, but we'll still have to wait for October surprise. We'll wonder. We're coming up soon on when, the deadline, when we're going to see they're going to pull their Trump cards out of their sleeve. But let's get into the Russia thing now. And as you guys know, Lauren Chen of Tenet Media, she also worked for The Blaze and TPUSA, has been busted by the feds for taking millions from Russia and to promote Russian propaganda. And we're going to show you some of the clips. Here we are. Show you some of the clips that are interesting to watch in the context of understanding she was paid from Russia for this. So here's the first one.
And I think in this day and age, we all like to assume we're immune to propaganda. COVID should have really been that out of all of us, but somehow it hasn't.
We're all immune from propaganda, right, guys? As she's literally engaging in Russian propaganda right now.
Also, I think we might have personal disagreements about the COVID and vaccines and so on, but even you would admit that, like, the level of propaganda about COVID or against or for vaccines or about all sorts of wackiness during the COVID era, like that, the irony of the COVID era is that the liberals and Dr. Fauci made us stay home, where our brains were broken and fragmented into a million pieces, thus allowing for Trump to win victory in 2024. Like, it's a kind of funny irony, but like this notion that, we finally got past the propaganda in 2020 is bizarre, deluded notion.
It is true that through COVID, a lot of like Americans and normal people realized that, like, mistrust of the government grew and increased. But then I think that mistrust was herded into a lot of really, kooky beliefs that they got online. So it's a double-edged sword But it's just hilarious that she's like criticizing propaganda while this is literally Russian propaganda.
All of us, but somehow it hasn't. But it's like, think about what's happening. Step one, you shut down anyone who's trying to talk about diplomacy or the Russian perspective as pro-Putin Russian asset.
Oh, how dare anybody shuts her down as a pro-Putin asset. She's saying that while she's a Russian asset.
The other thing we should say here, there is no way that she did not know. Reading the indictment, there is no way that she did not know. Now, I'm reasonable. I'm willing to give other people the benefit of the doubt or be a little suspicious, but sort of go with it. With Lauren Chen, you cannot go with that. And she is not the defendant in the indictment. So it's two Russians who are abroad. And probably, who knows if those Russians even exist?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
It's all bizarre.
So here's state attorneys. The name of the woman is Elena Afanaskia. And I tried to look her up. I tried to see what she looked like, a.k.a. Lena, with conspiracy to violate foreign agents. She violated the FARA Act. And when you look up that name, this is what comes up. Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Principal economist. But this looks like...
Surely that's...
I know. Well, I want to know what the real one looks like, because this is like the first thing that came up.
Conspiracy go, yeah.
So that's
and the
weird.
Kalishnikov is the other one. I mean, it's a little... I don't know. I mean, this should be said just in case some of your viewers are coming to this for the first time. So Lauren Chen and her very, very curious husband, Liam Donovan, who also I could not find anything on the internet about. I found a few videos of him alongside Lauren in a stream or something. I don't really know who this person is. They are not the defendants. So these two Russians are the defendants. I guess the notion from the prosecutors is that Lauren will start cooperating with them and help them out. But I have to say, if I were to make a prediction, I think there are going to be additional indictments of Laura. I think they want to shock her with this and get her to start talking and pleading down to something where she won't, her pretty face won't be behind bars.
It's kind of interesting too.
She's screwed.
I wonder how long, because she worked for RT before she worked with the RT people to set up Tenet Media. It's like,
correct.
She could have been rich herself if they gave her $10 million, but maybe it could have been more and more as the years went on if they didn't get busted. But like, she could have been rich and successful doing this without taking Russian money, but she still ended up collaborating for some reason. Could it be have to do with her husband, who, like you said?
Well, there are a couple of explanations for this. So one explanation actually is romanticism. And it's like, ooh, I'm getting paid millions by the Russian government. This is illegal. And you could write a John le Carré novel about this. There's a sort of 007 quality to it. I
Tokyo Rose vibe.
Tokyo, yeah. And she does sort of look like a Bond girl, I mean, to give her credit here, she could be like a villainess who poisons people with chopsticks or sorry, that was crude.
And
yes.
She had you on once. I think it was 6 years ago or something, right?
Yeah, it was 2016 or 2017. I can't remember. That was very early. I'd never heard of her before then. And we had a very nice talk. In fact, she got bashed by a lot of liberals for, you allow Richard to come on there. You two are just like flirting and he's giving you his spin and you're just eating it up. You're not pushing back. I remember seeing a lot of that. But then she had a relatively successful career. She wasn't quite a household name, but I mean, she was working on The Blaze. She was involved with the sort of like anti-woke YouTube crowd where they're constantly talking about Disney movies and how disappointed they are. Man children talking about how disappointed they are in the Disney Corporation for letting them down on the Little Mermaid movie or something.
One of her latest things is Christ is King was something she was into recently.
That's where she mutated. So it's all the mutations are there, and she tracks with so many of them. And the Christ is King stuff is certainly huge. Promotion of Nick Fuentes is also just real. It's just a fact. And she was sort of a kind of go-between between a number of people. So I was not in touch with her. I talked with her a while ago. I don't know if I have a DM from her from like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think so. I don't think I've been in touch with her. I did go on Tenet Media, and I was, I'm generally speaking happy to go on any sort of media. I don't think any fair person who watches my program, we were not talking about Russia. If we did, I gave my usual pro-Ukraine sentiments. Arthur Bloom,
they still need to have contact and engage in debates with people, on the internet.
Well, this is what I said with JF. Like, if you told me what Russian propaganda would be like, I think we imagined it would be sort of over the top. It would be a little too much. It would be hardline, dogmatic, in your face kind of stuff. Or it would be this kind of, like a lot of countries will do like cultural outreach. Well, they'll like, present the culture of their people and show people, dancing around a maypole or something and bringing that to Americans. They didn't do that. They worked with Americans. They worked with the online right. They worked with the millennial online right. All of these things are important. And they went through all sorts of variations: COVID conspiracy, vaccine stuff, Christ is King, trad Catholicism, anti-woke. Like they mixed it in. Yeah. And so it's that notion. I mean, I think this term was used actually in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I thought of it when I was mentioning John le Carré of chicken feed. So there's a ton of chicken feed in the sense of just stuff that's out of date, that's meaningless, that doesn't necessarily that's not pro-Russia at all. But there are these little nuggets in there.
Yeah, just sprinkling it in a little bit, and then a couple examples, hammering it really hard. But like, I wasn't very familiar with Tenet Media, but like they weren't on my radar as like, oh, they're Russians. Like I wasn't aware of it. I didn't even identify her as a possible Russian agent. There's way more people I would have listed before her. Which makes you wonder how many, if she's secretly paid, how many other people online, I see you get tons of hate and attacks and slander everywhere. I always have too. How many of this is coming from Russia or Israel? You always wonder that.
A ton of them. And you do. So I think they were dogmatic on a few things. For me, the smoking gun is accusing Ukraine of engaging in the ISIS-style terror attack in what was it, the Crocus Theater or something like that?
Yeah.
From a month, you're promoting that. You're just wildly jumping to conclusions. Ukraine has done some bold actions, but the notion that they're secretly funding Middle Eastern terrorists and engaging in spree shootings in a concert venue, a bit much. The fact that they all jumped on that demonstrates to me that there are some directives. So it's like, 95%, maybe even 99% of their programming was not overt propaganda or party line decisions. That's what's remarkable about it. And that's what in a way makes it so insidious.
Yeah, they were keeping it a little bit under the radar, and it was covert. And you mentioned the blaming NATO, America, CIA on the terrorist attack that happened in Russia. They literally have this in the indictment that this RT lady told the company to blame Ukraine and the United States, writing, quote, "I think we can focus on the Ukraine-U.S. angle." Mainstream media spread fake news that ISIS claimed responsibility, but ISIS hasn't admitted that yet. And it says, all terrorists are now detained. They were heading to the Ukraine border, which makes it even more suspicious. And the founder one said that they would ask commentator 3. So they're delivering messages to Lauren or her husband, are telling Benny Johnson or Tim Pool stuff to cover, apparently, from this indictment. And the next day confirmed that commentator 3 was, quote, "he's happy to cover it." And one of the other ones said no.
Lauren and Liam are massively guilty.
What?
I think Lauren and Liam are massively guilty.
Right.
When you see this, if they bring the proof of this, they can show direct cause and effect. I mean, there's no way out of that.
And then here's Benny Johnson, the clip of him promoting that exact literal Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in war, both sides. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it is what it is. Okay. The world is not sunshine and gumdrops. There are bad people, and oftentimes in war, both sides are the devil. Okay? Like, there's no angels in war. Go talk to somebody who's fought in a war and to ask if you were on the side of the angels. There are no angels in war. There are two sides, varying degrees of evil.
I've never watched him.
I'm just saying, that's why the best stance is to be anti-war. The best stance is to be peace at all costs. In virtually every situation.
Okay, maybe pause it. Okay, a couple of things here. So, first off, this, I labeled that video I put out, this is not propaganda. Like, this is not a pipe, basically. Like, this is not propaganda. Because how could you say this is propaganda? Because he's saying Russia's evil too. Tim Pool said Putin can suck his donkey balls or some weird thing like that. So it's not propaganda in that sense, but it is. And also, there are direct consequences towards saying you're anti-war. And I really mean this seriously, because this might get under the skin of some people who are genuinely idealistically anti-war and want to end war at all cost. RT in particular, and Russians who interact with Americans in general, they will accept you if you are a tradcath. They will accept you if you're a libertarian. They will accept you if you're a conservative, etc. If you're a liberal, so long as you are demoralizing NATO, which is it is directly standing across from them, so long as you are doing that, you can claim that the moon landing was fake and George Herbert Walker Bush was a lizard. That is fine. Or you cannot. You can debunk those claims. You can. So long as you are demoralizing NATO, you are good in their opinion. So all of this
America, NATO, or the West, but more accurately, and how Lauren was promoting, and so many of them focus on all the woke stuff and the woke army and everything. Yeah. Oh, there's the
you
memes
can praise
like, oh,
the
Putin.
West if you demoralize NATO, though. You can be like, we men of the West hate NATO. Like they'll accept that too.
True.
Basically,
True.
what I'm saying is it's 99% not propaganda. That's what's so kind of difficult about it. But like that was delivered very casually. But there are a lot of logical trains, going on in there. And it's very subtle, but it's actually very insidious. Insidious, excuse me.
Well, this is going to switch to Russian propaganda real quick when he follows the direction and says Ukraine and CIA did the attack in Russia.
Right.
Will this lead to escalation? I mean, if these people are found out to be like Ukrainian-backed terrorists, totally. Yes.
Escalation.
The U.S. can only produce about 1,000 artillery shells per day. Europeans even less. Russians are producing and using 10,000 a day. This is one of the reasons why Ukraine.
They even copied your haircut, Richard.
Congressional action won't fix this. So here from the Berliner Zeitung, the U.S. knew in advance about plans to blow up the Nord Stream pipelines in the Baltic Sea, according to Poland's foreign minister. In an interview published.
Remember when Tim Pool, pause it real quick. Remember when Tim Pool was also giving these weird numbers out when he was doing his like, Ukraine is our enemy. They're giving these funny numbers and he's reading at this point.
Yeah.
It's all very curious.
Yeah, we'll play that one in a minute too. We got that one.
We can't win a war against Russia, guys.
Yeah.
And we don't want it. There, you start doing a terrorist. You let the Ukrainians have their way. It's going to be nukes flying over Nebraska. Again, not that we shouldn't worry about nuclear war or World War III. I get it, but like this type of talk is Russian propaganda. Like endlessly warning about World War III. Do you think Russia might be worried about World War III? Do you think Russia there might be some reasonable person in the Kremlin who also doesn't want nukes to fly over St. Petersburg? I mean, you have to understand, like, this notion that it's like unilaterally we're the ones causing this and we're going to blow up your hometown due to it. This is Russian propaganda.
But the U.S. did nothing. So this is a terrorist attack. This is the largest eco-terrorism and economic terrorism ever. This is a terrorist attack that the U.S. knew about and then did nothing. Mike Benz, who's one of our favorite people as it pertains to these kind of topics of geopolitical warfare and next-gen warfare, says,
you tweeted about him. Hold on.
To the report that the U.S. State Department said, do not go to concerts in Russia. Once again, targeting music concerts. If the State Department knew it, the CIA somehow had advanced awareness and provided the intelligence and domestic paramilitary operations being planned in Moscow. Fill in the rest yourself. I mean, by every measure, it looks like the United States knew that something like this was going to pop off.
This is just such bad faith.
At what point?
Bad faith.
Is there?
They told him to say it.
Yeah, exactly. This is also just such bad faith. I mean, there were reports, credible to the degree that one source in a major, magazine like the New York Times or whatever is credible. But there were reports that Washington knew and that they warned Russia and that Russia did not take action. Maybe they didn't trust the Satanic West or whatever happened. But to then jump to the conclusion that Ukraine did it, to make an analogy between the Nord Stream situation and this, and like we knew.
Fill in the rest yourself.
Like
this vague accusation, right? Fill in the dots.
Yeah, as opposed to the reality, which is that even if Russia, the Russian deep state and the American deep state are at loggerheads, there's going to be some sort of communication. They sort of have a duty to warn. I mean, you could easily explain this as they were tipping off old Vladdy that, dozens of your people might get shot up in a concert venue. So, watch out. You don't take that. You take it as, they knew. Did they plan it? I don't know. Fill in the blanks yourself.
We got another 12 seconds of this one. Hopefully he gives us a nice soundbite.
Is there culpability? Well, I guess we're going to have to wait and see to find out who these guys were and to find out, what the response will be with you as it pertains to Ukraine.
Is Ukraine involved? Basically, that's what he was getting at. Yeah. So they literally told him to say that. And remember, when it happened, this was March 22nd, the moment when the terrorists started killing. What does Alex Jones say? NATO strikes. 38,000 likes.
NATO.
And Mario Nafal, I think his name is, who the biggest Spaces guy on X. Oh yeah. Right after this, had on Jackson Hinkle, Alex Jones, a bunch of other pro-Putin people, and that was the consensus on there. They were all blaming NATO, Ukraine, and the CIA.
Yeah.
And I was countering them. I was like, how does NATO benefit from this? They all got blamed. Kiev, or I think it was, got bombed. Putin had the justification to do a bunch of pretext to do a bunch of bombing after this as well. We got a big donut. Oh, wait. Primordial Chaos read my mind when you said that Russia doesn't want World War III too. I was thinking the same thing. They've threatened it some, but also the Russian Orthodox Church believes in an Armageddon end times war as well. So and any Orthodox Jews that are over there in Russia, they all want an end times war against the Satanic West. Primordial says, Richard, Russia and Putin has God, Yahweh on their side. So says the Russian Orthodox Church. Nukes are welcome. Praise Jesus.
Well, okay, but we have maniacs in our countries who say similar things. There was actually a clip from Russian Fox News that I remember seeing of someone was on there, and this is broadcast to the people of Russia. What do we care? If we get nuked, we go to heaven. Where do they go? Kind of implying that we're going to go to hell or something.
And I get your point though about trying to.
There, no doubt.
Yeah, the point of that statement was to say that it's not just the West that wants to, or it's not just, what were you saying?
It's not just the West that worries about World War III.
Right.
I mean,
the point.
The Kremlin also worries about, look, let's say that they used a tactical nuclear weapon. I have reporting on this, and I also have a man I talked to who's he's actually a Russian immigrant who is I usually agree with him. He's very sound on these. I think the United States would respond with regime death, and not respond with a nuclear weapon. If a tactical nuke was used in Ukraine, I think they would respond with a total obliteration of government property in the Kremlin, and in a direct attempt to kill the regime and bureaucrats, etc. Now, Russia gets it. Like if they're nothing if not survivors, Putin. He is nothing if not a survivor. He is going to want to maintain his system. He doesn't, in fact, want to die. So they have to deal with the threat of World War III as well. It's why I supported a no-fly zone early on in the campaign. Everyone was like, oh, it starts World War III. Well, it starts World War III for them, too. And
if Putin's so scared of NATO invading Ukraine, it only increases the chance of a conflict with NATO. So I don't buy that excuse. So here's one, and you have some thoughts on this, but we'll play it first. Lauren Southern in Tenet produced video says fake news is rampant, but mocks the idea.
This is the one I'm glad you're playing this one.
Yeah. Okay, we'll play this.
The
So Lauren Southern went to Moscow to meet with Dugin, worked for Rebel Media, another Canadian, and she was working for Tenet. Yeah. Yeah, Jewish-owned Rebel Media. And now here she is being paid by Russia to dismiss the idea of Russian propaganda, basically.
The NSA and DARPA working hand in hand with Google and Facebook to keep everyone sedated and controlled for the New World Order. Reality is shifting far closer to the world of dead internet theory than we would like to imagine it.
I agree with her on that. I'm wondering how much of the internet and how much of these AstroTurf influencers are, one side is Israel, the other side's being controlled by Russia, and that's the dichotomy.
And they're talking to each other.
Right.
It is truly is dead internet theory, where bots are interacting with bots, and humans are seeing this as a conversation that they're going to learn from. It is scary. That's the problem. They get at that reality, which is. It's interesting that what they were demonizing. They get at the reality, which is that at this point, what is real? I can pick out an AI generated image as fairly as you can, or as most people. I kind of know what it looks like. Some of them are obviously too ridiculous, but where is this going to be in 6 months? Where is this going to be in 3 years? I think it might very well be at a point where it is totally indistinguishable. Mm-hmm. And some of these ones that aren't, Trump with cats are like a girl. There's this one where it's silent and there's a girl giving a presentation at a sort of TED Talk and just talking and smiling. They're kind of like micro expressions. You can see light in her eyes as opposed to some other AI images. I think it's extremely scary. Two things. It's very interesting that they were demonizing Google and Facebook. This is something you see a lot from the Teal network, is demonizing those two.
Isn't he an investor in Facebook, though?
He was.
Oh, he sold.
Yes.
He cashed out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the alternatives that, go to Rumble, go to whatever. It's very interesting, but I won't dwell on that. So she establishes a reality that is actually worth talking about and very serious. But then she goes from there.
Okay.
Has with the rise of AI. This time around, they won't be saying that the laptop was planted by Russian agents or whatever scandal it is. They'll instead say that the entire thing was generated by AI. All of those images of the president's son.
So, they just dismiss everything as Russian propaganda, right? That's kind of the vibe. Just a little injection in there. Yeah.
But also, do you see the flip? It's a non sequitur. But that's a lot how these things work, because most human beings kind of think and live their life in non sequiturs. If you actually get them to lay out what they're talking about. So there's a real danger of AI where we lose touch of reality, and fakes could ruin your life, could start a war. What if there was a fake of Vladimir Putin saying we've launched nukes at Poland or whatever? Oh my God, you'd freak out. And in the 30 minutes it would take to get that debunked or something, armies could start crossing borders. It's a super serious thing, is all I'm saying. But she doesn't talk about that. She flips it. So she says the next time there's some Hunter laptop, bullshit conservative obsession, they're going to blame it on AI. So she establishes a real problem and then just avoids the real problem, because that's kind of difficult to talk about. I don't have a conclusion or a solution to that real problem of AI. So, and then it's like, oh, they won't let you have another laptop. Like much like we know that Russian propaganda is totally fake. Now they're just going to blame it on AI. They won't even need the Russian scapegoat next time. That's what she's saying. That's just a total non sequitur from, you know, where she was. And it's basically also, I guess, more subtly implying that you should believe it, because we know that the Hunter laptop was real. So the next October surprise of, like, I don't know, Kamala sex tape or something, you should believe that too.
Here's one of my AI images. Donald Trump kissing Benjamin Netanyahu in the White House.
Right. That's
totally real.
That actually happened.
Yeah, that actually happened.
Well,
let's
let
see
her finish here real quick.
Yeah.
Totally made up. That was Midjourney guy AI. All of those images of the president's son, totally made up. That was Midjourney, guys. And his text logs, simply ChatGPT. We're set to face an expansion of government control, the likes of which you have never seen before.
Okay.
Government control, yeah.
Government control. They're not going to let you have your Hunter Biden laptop scandal. They're just not. Those bastards in Washington won't let you look at Hunter's dick. That is effectively what she's saying. So it's playing to that conservative audience. But also, I mean, look, this is from my perspective, but don't we need some sort of government control on AI? I mean, if at some point you cannot differentiate a AI generated video of Lauren Southern saying mediocre nonsense versus the real Lauren Southern saying mediocre nonsense, don't we need some sort of regulation? Like there are, for instance, libel and slander laws. There's regulation of your food. There's
fake news and disinformation online. They'll do
right. Yeah. It's actually an issue where there, like, unless you're a genuine libertarian and you don't want any form of government whatsoever, or this is basically saying, like, oppose every form of government intervention because it's all bad. They're trying to prevent you from looking at Hunter's dick. That's literally, I mean, that is the logic of what she's saying, and that's what's sort of implied or accepted by them. But, like, this is, again, of Mike Benz, who, it's interesting that Benny Johnson, or whatever his name is, said, oh, Mike, our favorite guy, Mike. This is his line. Mike Benz is very talented at weaving a narrative, and most of the facts are true or true-ish. They're so, everyone is making an argument or emphasizing things or maybe pushing the envelope here and there. But he weaves this narrative of NATO and the U.S. government want to shut down conservatives. They are just after us, and they all want to shut down Donald Trump. And our last chance to save Trump is to oppose any sort of government regulation. Now, knowing what we know about Tenet, knowing also what we know, that there seems to be one or no degrees of separation between Tenet and Mike Benz, knowing that Mike Benz is a rather suspicious individual to begin with, a Jewish man who came to the alt-right in 2016 and 2017 and promoted it out the wazoo as frame games and said, this is how we win white identity. I can tell you as a Jew, I'm here to help, kind of thing. Knowing that this is just an inherently suspicious individual, what I see is that they fear any sort of actual regulation of Russian interference into the public space, into the public conversation, that they want to preemptively, in many cases, delegitimize any sort of regulation or any sort of indictment like this, or anything, any fact-checking, anything. They want to deregulate that as, listen, guys, it's NATO and the deep state working together because they hate conservatives. That's what it's about. So don't trust it. That indictment of Lauren, don't trust it. That's just the deep state noise. Don't trust. It's again, it's not that free speech isn't a topic that we should talk about. And it's a tricky one. And I've been censored on social media as well. I'm especially I have a perspective that should be in this discussion. But when these people do it I do not trust them as far as I can fucking throw them. You know?
Yeah,
like,
the whole underlying message here.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
People talked about me like I hate Mike Benz because I'm like, I didn't know Mike Benz in the alt-right. Mike Benz never contacted me personally. I was on a podcast with him. I'm not terribly interested in him. I wasn't terribly impressed by him when he was doing his, this is how we win, guys, type talks. But this guy there is no or 1 degree of separation between a clear Russian operation and Mike Benz. Mm-hmm. And this is the guy, the expert, the former State Department official, who I was doing scare quotes there, but they didn't get in the frame. I'll do them right here. Mm-hmm. Expert, State Department official, who is basically the go-to man for Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, and others when they talk about these issues. And he is directly so close. He is rubbing up against what is clearly a Russian operation. And he's also Jewish, so also think about that too, in terms of his other loyalties. I mean, these are extremely, extremely dubious people who are making tendentious arguments about how we should oppose any sort of government regulation, any sort of Department of Justice indictment. Oh, they just hate conservatives, guys. They just hate conservatives. I don't trust any of these people. And I think there are some, yeah, sure, it's all politicized to some degree. There are some good people in the Department of Justice who are trying to get to the bottom of this shit. And I am very happy that they're doing it.
Didn't Mike Benz confess to trying to co-opt the alt-right essentially?
Yeah, this was his weird excuse, which is I'm Jews and I was working with Jews to prevent an attack by whites on Jews. So you're welcome, America.
Right.
Now, whether he was actually doing that, I find that dubious, but
you're right. The whole underlying message here with Lauren Southern is that you shouldn't trust the government when they expose Russian propaganda. When Russia puts out some propaganda, don't believe it. That's basically the subliminal takeaway here.
Yeah,
I would say. Here's another funny one. And they deleted her account. Lauren Jen.
Hey,
YouTube
Lauren
did.
Which is
here.
the wrong thing to do, in my opinion.
Right.
Hey, Lauren here. Let's talk about government propaganda.
Let's talk about She's the Russian propagandist, and this is how she starts her video.
Hey, Lauren here. Let's talk about government propaganda. The stuff that you see coming out of North Korea or heck, even Russia. Actually, let's talk about Russia for a second. As Vice News put out, Russian TikTok influencers are actually being paid to spread Kremlin propaganda. And in fact, as people on social media have found, there are several different Russian TikTok influencers who can be seen reading the exact same script to their audience, words that were probably given to them by the Russian government.
And she's literally reading a teleprompter right now, possibly from the Russian government.
By the Russian government. Thank goodness that type of thing would never happen in a Western country. That's so outrageous.
No. We know it does in Western countries, but the fact that she's Russian trying to downplay it and refocus it on
fucking bullshit. The other thing, didn't Biden openly announce that they were inviting TikTokers and they were giving them we want to influence the kids these days. I'm like 90 or 100 or something. So, we want to reach them through TikTok or whatever that app is. I can't find it on my phone. I've lost my password. Yeah, of course they're doing that. Every government on earth does that. I would say that America isn't as, I don't know, ruthless about it.
Yeah. It's not like Russia and the Soviets are known for covert propaganda and covert spies. They would never do something like that. You're just a kook. What are you, Russia? What are you, Rachel Maddow? What do you believe, the mainstream media? That's the excuses they try to give.
Intervention.
Here's another one.
Of Tim has said or
that
what I have said.
I have to say, that clip was breathtaking.
I know. These are all so funny to watch in hindsight, which sucks that they banned her channel because now it's harder for people to go and dig all these up. Immediately when I heard, I was going through and searching YouTube, Lauren Chen, Russia, or anything like that I could find.
of Tim has said or what I have said mean that we are okay with Ukrainian children being killed? Absolutely not. But at this point, I think it's pretty clear that the mainstream media, the corporate establishment press, does seem to be, frankly, pushing wartime propaganda in favor of Ukraine with.
This is wartime propaganda in favor of Russia, covertly paid by Russia, as she's saying this.
Yeah.
Frankly, pushing wartime propaganda in favor of Ukraine with the intention of buttering up the populace to support Western intervention in the conflict. And to anyone who might be of Tim has said or...
Yeah, and these sweet lips are buttering up all of your followers to not engage in the conflict anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I like it how, it's one of those things. I think is it parataxis? I think there's some rhetorical technique. When you say something, you in fact mean the opposite. Like whenever you say "with all due respect," that's always a preface for insulting someone.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny when they say that, like, "Hey, listen, we don't want Ukrainians to die or anything." There's just something inherently mendacious of that. Tim and I don't like killing babies. Almost makes me think you want to kill babies when you say that.
I know. It's like if all the rest of this is an insidious lie and propaganda, like we should believe the opposite of that, basically.
Right.
And I don't think I have it up. I might have a tab for it. We got a lot of tabs here. I wasn't joking when I said a lot of research went into this one. We'll probably have to do I'll have to do a part 2.
Well, we can keep going. I have to be done by like 3:30 my time, but
no worries. I like to keep it under 2 hours anyway.
Yeah.
But I saw that, I think it was in the same indictment, apparently the government is monitoring, it said 2,800 people in America. I'm not sure if it was America or all over the world that they're following to see if they're getting Russian money or any foreign money, apparently. 2,800, which is interesting because it's like the 2,800 slaves in Judaism in the end times, that special number.
Oh,
but
wow.
It makes you wonder how many other people are shaking in their boots right now. For doing something. This is probably just the tip of the iceberg on how much this is going on elsewhere.
I'm curious about that because I think it was there are a number of these accounts, well over 1,000 or so that are called influencers accounts that weren't those being monitored by the Russians? Or did I have that wrong?
No, I thought it was our DOJ.
Okay. And then there was the anti-influencers, which I also find I want to know more about all this. I want to see these names. They need to release this stuff because it's in the public sphere. It's clearly affecting the election. They need to release it.
Now here is Destiny, Destiny you debated. That was on Adam 22 show, right?
Yeah.
And there's been rumors that Destiny has been sexual with Lauren. I don't know. That could just be a rumor. But
apartment.
Well, it sounds like you wanted to sit in the cuck chair. Isn't that his thing?
That could have been too. But it just for more context of how he might know something here. This is him.
Yes.
Well, we're not all getting that dirty Russian money, okay, to fund our $7,000 a month apartment. I can only afford a 2-bedroom, $3,500 a month apartment in Miami. I'm sorry that I'm not up there at your level
this
yet,
is
okay?
my Kremlin penthouse that I'm in.
Over to me, I'll get a bigger apartment. I'll put the washer in the upstairs fucking loft. Okay?
Here we go. Here we go. We got a neutral moderator.
Well, we're not all getting that dirty.
So did Destiny know?
Yes.
He knew.
I mean, look, I have heard this as well, that he was after Lauren. Destiny, I mean, I would debate him again. I think he'll occasionally even do things that I agree with, but he does seem to be a bit of a perv. I'm not making any sort of accusation, but he seems to be a little bit pervy, let's just say. So I think he did know. And the fact that he knows about her apartment and where she's living, I think that is important and revealing and incredible. And the fact that she's like non-denying, smiling, turning to the side and then drinking wine, it is truly just stunning.
I know. She laughs and takes a drink when he says you're getting that dirty Russian money. And it literally was dirty because it was secret and covert.
Yeah.
Here's one more.
All about moral standards. individual, so he is not receiving inherent rights.
It's not about moral standards. It's not at all about moral standards. It's about he's been taking Russian money.
So what?
But I mean, doesn't there have to be a trial before you can even say that? Like, has he been taking Russian money? Who's he been taking it
I don't
from?
care. I don't care if Vladimir Putin personally handed him a gold bar. The fact individual.
Okay, apparently Tim was paid in gold bars.
Yeah.
Russian gold bars. He doesn't care.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So what I've learned from delving in to some of these interrogation videos on YouTube is that whenever the police, which is a whole genre of YouTube that's pretty interesting, and it's revealing psychologically, whenever the police really think they have their man, they'll often ask him a question, but he hasn't confessed yet. They'll ask him a question of like, what do you want to do to the guy? What should we do to this bastard who killed your family? And the natural response, the response of an innocent person, is bombast. So, who kidnapped your kids, Chris Watts? What should we do to this guy? His response should be fucking shoot him in the face, or like at the very least, like put him on the chair. I want to watch him fry. It should be bombastic, over the top, because that's how you feel. What the response of Chris Watts, who's a truly disgusting individual who murdered his wife and kids for his mistress, his response was, well, he should be arrested. Do we live in a death penalty state? I don't remember. Well, he should have a fair trial.
So Tim basically here is like, hey, no big deal if people are paid Russian agents, right, guys? No big deal.
Exactly. So look, Arthur Bloom. I think Arthur Bloom hated me back in the day, but all is forgiven. He's on the right side in this one. He's basically showing the mirror image of Tim Pool, perhaps, allegedly. He's showing that, what should we do with the guy who killed your wife type thing, to the guy who killed his wife. And look how he reacts. I don't care. It doesn't matter. He would have said it anyway. That's not proof of anything, but that is something that when someone responds in that manner, you would want to look into it.
Right. I agree. Doesn't look so good now, especially since he ran to Ben Shapiro's show right away to declare that he's a victim and completely innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Lauren Chen defending Tim Pool from Russian asset accusations, and about a year later, she was funding him with Russian money.
Back so much traction that Tim Pool did end up trending, and it seemed like the consensus among a lot of people who were criticizing Tim was that, yeah, he clearly just does not care about Ukrainian civilians being killed by Russia, or he's a Russian asset, you name it. Which is so frustrating, because as someone who actually listens to Tim Pool's stuff,
it's so frustrating when people call the guy I'm paying as a Russian agent. Is this not just hilarious?
God, it is stunning.
One more time.
Russia, or he's a Russian asset. Really just does not care about Ukrainian civilians being killed by Russia, or he's a Russian asset, you name it. Which is so frustrating, because as someone who actually listens to Tim Pool's stuff, I know that he is
definitely cashing Russian checks.
Believe me, I know.
Yeah.
I've been delivering the gold bars.
Delivering the gold bars. It's so funny. And everybody's sweeping for this. All of these lies, the vindication, and now they're all trying to attack us for this. And I've noticed on Twitter, extremely low engagement on all of this stuff going on. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Elon Musk was clearly promoting this stuff, perhaps unwittingly. Mm-hmm. But the amount of time he interacted with Tenet Media with some reply like concerning, or like an exclamation mark, or a emoji or something, like that does a lot. Elon, how many does he have? 30 million Twitter followers or whatever. I mean, yeah, that is a huge.
And he was engaging. I one of these tabs is him engaging with them a whole lot, with Tim Pool, with Tenet, and then Trump had this sit down with Tim Pool. I think Benny Johnson as well, Rubin probably also too. All of these figures. Let's see if there's any more here. But this is just
hardline anti.
The way these aged is just too good.
Again, you don't have to think that he is right here, but to misinterpret his take as him thinking that civilian deaths and casualties are not a big deal, that is the exact opposite of what he thinks valor, sock puppet being played. They are manipulating, control you, keep crying, keep trying, and F your wars. He then posted a follow-up tweet, crying translators, fake stories of valor.
They want to, so this is all projection. They want to manipulate you into supporting non-intervention. They show you victim Russian stuff and sock puppets. Oh, Russia doesn't have any sock puppets and bots. Yeah. Keep crying. And then he says, F your wars. What's the other one too? Shoot. You are being played. They are manipulating your emotions to get you to support war. And I think we'll cut right to Tim Pool's ranting video now that everybody's sharing.
But I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine.
And there's even more of it. He goes on to say they're the greatest enemy of the world.
That's the one where he was quoting all of these like munition statistics or something, which I also just... it's odd that you'd have those at your fingertips.
It seemed like he was teleprompter reading too during that.
Yes.
That one.
I would also mention this. Here, I'll scoot it. I actually started leaning down.
Okay, there we go. I got you. I'll keep you in the middle.
Breaking points with Sagar, Injeti, and Crystal Ball. I think they strike me as suspicious. Now, Ryan Grimm is connected with them. He's a journalist. You could always say that they came to these conclusions via groupthink, or even via Tim Pool. Like, where is his audience going? We want to be a part of that. That's all fair. I'm not making like a direct accusation. I'm just saying it's a bit suspicious. I remember seeing this video of theirs that popped up on my feed after the Kursk offensive. So Ukraine stopped being totally defensive and got offensive, and in fact did an incursion into Kursk. And their take on this remarkable act was NATO is sponsoring a full-fledged invasion of Russia. So that is obviously a extreme mischaracterization of what's happening. And I found that I remember that. I'm going to go find the clip and I'll cut it and post it. That seems to be a sort of like more polite version of what Tim Pool said just there. And I think it's actually highly suspicious that Russia is trying to get with the millennials. It's very interesting. They're getting with the alternative media. Half of voters are getting their news from alternative sources other than, major newspapers or cable news and things like that. They're smartly, Russia, that is, getting with the kind of millennial influencer crowd and what has replaced newspapers and cable news, in the minds of millions of voters. It's remarkable.
Targeting the Zoomers, you say. Interesting that Tenet Media gave so much exposure and had so many live videos from Nick's conference a few months ago.
Yes. Well, the millennials were donning or doffing their cap to the Zoomers, I guess, in that case. But yeah, look, Nick he's done a 180. I think Nick has a survival instinct as well. But sure, play that. Let's see the worst of Nick.
That wasn't a clip. That was just a screenshot. But here you say, what does the fact that Tim Pool went on Ben Shapiro's show to explain the Tenet situation reveal about the intersection of Israel Likud and Russian influence operations? Also, Dave Rubin and Lauren working for the Blaze CRTV as well.
Yes. She was fired. Dave Rubin wasn't. Very interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the one Taylor Hansen, he got his YouTube channel banned with Lauren, but not the other guys. Like, I thought he was a victim too. Why did he get targeted? But Rubin...
Well, YouTube's in a pickle because, Tim Pool for YouTube might be too big to fail. Taylor Hansen is not. Mm-hmm. They can make him a sacrificial lamb. But are they going to really delete Tim Pool's channel? That will directly affect YouTube. In terms of the Likud and Russian connection. I mean, you can probably add to this as well, but I'll set us up in this discussion. The dissident right has this notion that Vladimir Putin is anti-Semitic or fighting the Jews or what have you. Yeah. And that is wrong. There is no reason to believe that, judging Putin by his own actions, domestically speaking, going after Russian nationalists domestically, praising Jewish groups, talking about anti-Semitism as a problem. The fact that he justified the invasion of Ukraine as a denazification effort, we've all forgotten about that, I think is quite telling. In terms of Likud, a huge part of Likud's coalition are, in effect, Russians. So these are people who their grandfather, or maybe they themselves are still alive, immigrated from the Soviet Union and came to Israel. These were the Jews. Many people have suspicions about just how Jewish these people are. They remain Russian nationalist. There are interesting images from Bibi Netanyahu's election campaign where he has, banners on office buildings, skyscrapers of him shaking hands with Vladimir Putin. Israel has, to my knowledge, have they actually condemned the invasion of Ukraine?
No, they didn't. They didn't join the sanctions. I don't think Netanyahu has ever criticized Putin for any of that. Putin, likewise, has not criticized Netanyahu.
Yeah, he blamed the West.
Yeah, he blames America for what Israel's doing.
It's like, this is the fault of the West again, which is, again, that's kind of like 30% true. I mean, you have to directly blame the terrorist organization who did it. You have to also, the real context is the occupation that inspired the terrorist attack.
They're blaming the Christian Zionists.
To the West a little bit down the line. I mean, I'm not saying we're not to blame, but it's that kind of like bullshitty response where he's avoiding actually pointing out Netanyahu that's clear. So there, again, this is just a data point. Tim Pool, a lot of people who might even like Tim Pool probably hate Ben Shapiro. They're like, oh yeah, Ben Shapiro, he's a neocon. Put on the yarmulke, Ben. Whatever. Isn't it interesting that Tim Pool's safe space for discussing this, like where can I get a softball tossed over the plate that I can hit out of the park, was Ben Shapiro? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, he was sweeping for Rubin as well.
Yeah.
Here's Yair Netanyahu, Netanyahu's son, saying most of his friends are Israelis born in Russia, and talks about immigration. The Likud is the natural home of Israelis from the USSR. And then there's the Chabad connection, too, between Likud and Netanyahu's factions.
Yes.
So it's controlling both sides of the dialectic. The pro-Zionist from Israel and the anti-Zionist is dominated by pro-Putin, Trump sympathetic, while still some criticism, the Christian-Muslim alliance. Like that Christian-Muslim war propaganda video Russia put out the other day.
Yes, and you get all the white nationalists, neo-Nazis supporting Russia. So you kind of, in a way, kind of neutralize them or getting them off on a funny track and things like that. Yeah, it's very elaborate.
Everybody's pointing out, including Alex Jones, who quickly spun it to China and the Chi-Coms, but can't make this up. Segment with Lauren Chen, foreign influence. Ben Shapiro cuts to an ad for Israel.
It's frustrating to get entangled in whatever it is she's accused of being involved in.
Folks, our friends in Israel need our help now more than ever. If you're looking for a tangible way to support the Holy Land, you need to check out Artza Box. Artza brings the essence of Israel right to your doorstep. Every 3 months, you receive a carefully curated collection.
The essence of Israel to your doorstep. What is it, a dead baby? From Palestine?
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, here's this guy. So this is the author of Vatnik Soup, I believe. Yes, so he's all over the Russians. The Russian intelligence services prefer, if you don't know you're working for them, a foreign agent can be witting, knowing working for a foreign government, or unwitting, useful idiots, as they're called. And there's the 2800 here. We can read this more closely. SDA extensive. Who is the SDA documents further reveal the SDA? What does that stand for? Extensively monitors and collects information about a large number of media organizations. One document revealed a list of more than 2,800 people on Twitter, and it's all walks of life. Influencers like radio hosts, politicians, bloggers, journalists, businessmen, professors, think tank analysts, veterans, professors, and comedians.
Dave Rubin's a great comedian. He's just so funny. Let me say a couple of things on this. So many people have heard about that show, The Americans. I think it was on Turner Movie Classics, maybe, or maybe it was Showtime. I streamed a little bit of it around a year ago, and it was I found it pretty good. So it takes place in the 1980s, and it is these young, deep cover Soviet agents who come to the United States. Their cover is so deep that they're under the covers. They become a married couple, even though they had just met each other at that point. They have children in the United States. Now, in the show, it's a weekly show that there's always a sort of adventure per week. So they'll, do an audio recording of a congressman or his wife who's, will sleep with some sort of journalist to plant a story. So it's a lot of kind of espionage and James Bond type stuff going on in there. And it all takes place in the 80s as well, because that was the end of the Cold War, but a certain type of zenith of it as well. Now, that show was not based on something that occurred in the 1980s. That show was based on something that occurred in the 2000s. If you remember this prisoner exchange that happened the other week, there were actually people from South America who were deep cover agents. Again, I'm not making this up, as kind of outrageous as this sounds, who brought their children back to Russia in a prisoner exchange. So basically, they had been undercover, so undercover that they had children, and these children were coming home. And the children had no idea. They didn't speak a word of Russia. They learned that they were traveling to Russia while they were on the plane. So this stuff is real. Mm-hmm. It often operates via Canada, interestingly enough. And there are some sort of stolen identity. It's plausibly deniable. You create a backstory if you're bringing an adult who has been trained. You create a certain backstory. Oh, yeah, I grew up in Ottawa, and I was on the football team, and so on. They're speaking English perfectly without accented. They're often there with a partner that is a group. This stuff is real. This stuff has been happening recently. This is not just Cold War era stuff. I'm just going to say it. Lauren Chen's husband just strikes me as dubious and suspicious. He's directly involved in this stuff. He has a sort of swarthy look about him. His name is Liam Donovan, which sounds like he's an Englishman or, professional golfer or whatever. He doesn't really look like that. I don't know if you could find a photo of him.
There. Oh, shoot. I don't have it up on screen. Sorry. I was just looking it up. Right here. He's definitely not European. Northwestern European.
Does he have a certain, Chechen look? Is he Jewish? I couldn't find any background on him. The most I found was a live stream where he's alongside Lauren, and he's basically just nodding and going along while she's talking about some COVID protest. Mm-hmm. Look, is this crazy for me to insinuate that he might be a deep cover agent, knowing what we know now? I think it's a lot less crazy than it was a week ago. Let's just say that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look at him. Kind of a weird to be named Liam Donovan. I mean,
yeah, doesn't look like his name is Liam Donovan.
No, no. Yeah, I just saying, it's just something to think about.
And still, I'm surprising we're not seeing a whole lot more on him. He's not being discussed more.
No, because he's behind the scenes. There are a number of people who work behind the scenes for Lauren Chen and Tim Pool who I hope get investigated. Liam was fingered in the indictment. He wasn't named directly, but it was clearly about him, a founder of Tenet Media. There's some other people who work behind the scenes. This is the other thing, and maybe your listeners will like this because it's almost more fascinating than the notion of a deep cover Russian agent. The name Tenet. So when I saw this, first off, when I saw Tenet Media, I was like, why are they even doing this? Like, what is this? Like, Dave Rubin exists, Lauren Chen exists. Just put up a video. Why is this a new media company or something? Well, we now know why, because they were using it to pay people $100,000 per episode. Mm-hmm. But Tenet as well, the look of the web page and something was very kind of like dance clubby. Like, didn't you see that? You think it was like for a dance club? It's just like purple with stark lighting and all this kind of stuff. But the name Tenet and the logo seem to be ripped off from the film Tenet to a degree that I thought it looks like a trademark violation, in fact, because they have the E's reversed. Maybe just look at the logo of Tenet.
Okay.
Tenet Media, that is.
Yeah.
Okay. Reversing a letter is often you sort of see that when you have like fake Russian,
Right.
something like that. Like
right.
Isn't it interesting? So it's a palindrome.
And the A too kind of looks like it could be a foreign letter.
Exactly. So there's that aspect to it, which is just weird. There's the fact that they're just totally ripping off the logo and font of this Christopher Nolan film. Now, this is one of Christopher Nolan's less successful films. It came out during COVID. The sound was weird. It was very confusing. But regardless, it's a major Hollywood production that you're just ripping off. It would be like you call your show Top Gun Maverick or Gone with the Wind. Or it's just strange. Like, why is this happening?
That's very weird.
Again, are they simply lazy? That's a plausible explanation. They're simply lazy, and one of them is a fan of this movie and has watched it 100 times or whatever. That's just strange to do. Like, are you that uncreative? But the thing about Tenet is that it's a time travel story, but done in a different way. So it's reversing inertia, and people are headed in different directions, and they're sort of embedding in each other's groups. I need to rewatch this movie because I might want to even unfurl this.
My friend in the chat, Primordial Chaos, says that the bad guy in the Tenet movie was Russian.
Yes, Sator. Yes, and so he's a Russian arms dealer who's up to no good, is at odds with the Russian state, and so on. Played by Kenneth Branagh. So there's a direct Russian element. There's a connection to the Soviet Union as well. And there's a connection to gold bars, although I guess that...
Look at what Liam says here in 2021 on his Twitter. He loves how Putin is currently trending and crediting him with installing Trump. It's a wild conspiracy theory, but he finds it troubling that Democrats focus more on Russia than China. That's one of his things.
God, the Chi-coms again. It's fascinating if he did do it. Yeah, it's that weird kind of double game. I remember seeing this photo of a Russian spy who was found out, who was wearing, I think she was the one who went to the NRA, and she wore this T-shirt that said Russian spy. So it was all this like, ha ha, like, oh yeah, I'm a Russian spy. We have sex.
Look at this one.
Let's go. Yeah, she had sex with like every member of the NRA. She was a remarkable young woman.
Okay, so we're doing real time investigation into Lauren Chen's husband here, which I haven't seen anybody else report on this. Cernovich talks about Wagner being assassinated, and he says this is why I approach Russia with complete agnosticism. Says the Russian fucking agent. Are you kidding me?
Yes, I know. It is stunning. And so they're subverting. I think in one opening scene in Tenet, they're doing this operation in the opera, and they don't know which patches they're going to wear. Are we Americans? So it's all this infiltration. And what you learn about at one point is that the protagonist, played by Denzel Washington's son, that he's always a step behind the plot. He's trying to figure it out. He's confused. He doesn't know what's going on. But the fact is, he's been working backwards through reverse inertia. So he founds Tenet in the future, and it's moving backwards to get to the origin point. So it's all, look, does it all make sense at the end? Probably not, but it's a overly complicated, mind-bending Christopher Nolan film like Inception. And
I never heard of it.
Oh,
actually.
Okay. It's worth watching. I'm gonna rewatch it. I've seen it about 3 or 4 times, and it's interesting. But what if Tenet has meaning? What meaning does it have? It is this is one thing that I was just suggesting online, and Charles Johnson seems to be convinced of this. I mean, take that with a grain of salt, of course. But might Russia be targeting the influencers? This scheme, it has been found out. It seems almost easily found out in the sense that they were using a bunch of shell companies and just directly giving people cash. It is maybe this plot coming from a different angle, and the targets of the plot are in fact the influencers who are being exposed. I'm just a thought.
That is an interesting idea. Here's another one from the indictment. They didn't want to. One of the creators didn't want to do the Tucker Carlson and the Russian grocery store propaganda video. They said it, quote, just feels like overt shilling. But the founder one, so Liam or Lauren Chen says, thinks we should put it out there. All right, I'll put it out tomorrow. And then they did do the Tucker Carlson. Ridiculous. They have bread. Look at these shelves. Look at the price. It's all so great.
Yeah. That was so over the top. Mm-hmm. This is the other thing about Tucker, because not only was the whole thing sycophantic, that's obvious. Not only was the whole thing just simply stupid. If you know anything about exchange rates or just currency value, you know that, look, if you and I were to go to some tiny town in Mexico right now, we'd be living like kings. It's I can't believe how cheap the beer is, because we're paying for it in dollars in effect. It's stupid. But there's another thing to it. It seemed to be a sort of reiteration of the kitchen talk between Khrushchev and Nixon, where there was a discussion between the two of them, and they were like, oh, we've got 100 different types of washing machines. We have one washing machine in the Soviet Union, and it's extremely efficient. Why do you need 100 brands? There was this, who's going to outproduce the other? Which society would be the best consumer society for the average man? And in the late 50s, that was a question, actually. Many people thought the Soviet Union was on the better track. But this seems to be a sort of reiteration of that, of going to a bounteous Russian grocery store. So you have to start asking questions about Tucker himself. If he's playing this part in a sort of deeper, scheme where there's multiple layers to it, what do we say about him? And in terms of finding bad clips of Russia, I mean, there's the one where he just overtly says on Fox News that I'm supporting Russia in this one. Mm-hmm. So I
remember that.
What is Tucker up to? And Tucker also, he's this I'm just asking questions guy.
Well, he's shilling Jesus now. That's for sure.
There's no doubt. They're praying on stage.
Yep.
He's shilling Jesus, but also last week he's talking with Daryl Cooper, who's, engaging in World War II revisionism. And then this week he's sitting there and nodding along with Glenn Beck, who's talking about how Kamala is a communist and fascist. And whatever. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Like there's no there. There's no coherent ideology. It's this asking questions, being sort of silly, if not hysterical about things, the laugh. The speech he gave just before he was fired from Fox News, where he was, just desperate for Christ and all that matters is God and everything else is meaningless. This is a sort of broken man.
The cozying up to Alex Jones too, also.
Oh yeah, how is it, Alex, that you're always so right? I mean,
he had Dugan on too. That's right. He had Dugan. They both had Dugan on.
Yes. So what is going on here? Do they think that Tucker is too big to fail? Or are they afraid to go after him? Because I think, like, what we know now for sure from Tenet leads me to believe that there are many other schemes afoot.
Tip of the iceberg, like this Vatnik Soup guy says. He says, to conclude, Russia has shifted its online influencing strategy. And in addition to using a vast bot and troll networks, they now provide monetary support for social media super spreader accounts via shell companies. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. And here's all the examples of Elon recently responding to Benny Johnson and Tim Pool and even sharing, I think I have it right here, sharing or commenting his famous exclamation to a Tenet media story, which is a wild story. NASA engineers saying they feel shame for the white supremacy culture. This is funny. Tim Pool bought a Cybertruck. No, Putin bought a Cybertruck. Also, Elon and Tim also posting all about civil war.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Ever since I've been politically aware, there's been some sort of Russian social scientist who's been predicting civil war. And now you have someone who can just bring that to the masses directly. Now, look, this is the problem with Russian propaganda is that it's 60% right or something. It's getting at something. Like, to go back to that Lauren
aspects of it
video. Like, she's addressing a real thing. She's not just overtly lying to you. She's addressing a real thing. So I think the whole social breakdown, civil war question is worthwhile being addressed. But when it's coming from someone taking Russian cash who's going to promote it in a salacious manner and not an analytical manner, we should be extremely suspicious of them.
Stop listening to these people that talk about Russian misinformation. That was Tim Pool in 2019 in all of his Civil War stuff. Let's see, what else do we got here? Lauren Chen had Alex Jones on just a month ago. And it's not just the people working for Tenet Media, or it's the Kremlin wants to promote those who they deem friendly to their interests, which you asked the question. I think it's right here. Oh, shoot, I lost it. You talk about how these people got to ask, why do they want to fund? Why does Russia want to fund them if we're granting that they didn't know?
Yeah, right. If you didn't know, if we're giving you the benefit of the doubt, why you? Why was Russia so interested in promoting you and making sure that you never stop speaking, that we want to get more of your content out there? We're just going to pay you. We're so happy with you. We're just going to pay you $100,000.
Yeah. A week.
400 an episode. I should say, not even like over a year, a week. It's insane.
Yeah. You say some might be quote unquote victims of sort, but why me is the real question. Don't you think?
Yeah. They won't engage in any sort of introspection, by the way. I mean,
yeah. Lauren Chen reached out to Daily Wire host Jewish Christian Andrew Klavan to get him to debate Nick Fuentes on Christ is King. I said Russia wanted to amplify the Christ is King rift and Nick Fuentes because it's a kosher wedge issue. They want this kosher opposition fighting about Jesus, having the whole conversation be about Jesus.
Yeah.
I've been saying it for years. Israel funds the pro-Zionists and Russia funds the anti-Zionists. And that's how the kosher ops are working. That's what I've been saying. And now we see an example of it. Russia, Iran, and Christian Muslim alliance of Gog needs the sheep. Here's Lauren Chen doing her Christ is King. Every knee will bow. Her 9,000 like viral tweet about Christ is King as well. So it's what Russia likes to see. Let's see what else we have here because we're going to wrap it. We got Fuentes now saying that he's not. He was just joking about being pro-Russian for years. Yeah. While all the heat's turned up, all of a sudden he's joking. Please.
Yeah. I mean, look, he at AFPAC 3 or 4 or whatever it was, he was saying, let's have Marjorie Taylor Greene was on stage. You know, let's have a round of applause for Vladimir Putin. I mean, he really did it. I mean, the thing that I find so fascinating is that the mainstream right and figures like Fuentes, who sort of mainstream in kind of funny ways, but isn't quite mainstream. Mm-hmm. But the mainstream, Benny Johnson and Dave Rubin are unquestionably mainstream people. Is that I have this feeling that the alt-right was a sort of dry run for what the mainstream right would become. And I'm not necessarily implying that it was intended that way, but that's how it ultimately ended up. That's how it ultimately turned out. All of the pro-Russia memes that were sort of edgy fun in 2014 that I echoed, by the way, are now like enlarged in size, in audience size, more relevant than ever, but are the same thing is being reiterated.
Yeah, the mainstream adopted it basically. Charlottesville famously, they chanted Putin is our friend, and then now that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones are saying basically.
Yeah, literally the talking point is the same. It's now at a much greater scale and has more impact as a result, and is in a way more relevant because we are in this geopolitical battle with Russia. It is incredible. In fact, when I think back upon all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. This is hilarious too. Now, Lauren Witzke is coming to the defense of Lauren Chen, obviously, and Right Wing Watch says, "Can't imagine that be
connection here." It's funny. They all talk about Cybertrucks. That's a connection. They all say Christ is King. That's another way you can kind of locate the network. But they're also named Lauren.
And Lauren was working with Stu Peters, and then now she's working with Nick Fuentes, and she's sweeping for Lauren Chen. And Right Wing Watch is right. I said the same thing. Lauren Witzke isn't going to help Lauren Chen beat the allegations she was running a Russian influence operation, saying stuff like this.
That we are just drifting farther and farther away from God, and God help us. That, what can you say? Pray for these people because we are absolutely going astray as a nation. And, you think Putin will liberate us? I don't even know what to say.
Listen,
I'm shocked.
Listen, that is perfectly fair for us to say. People are going to be like,
Ed, perfectly fair to say, is Putin going to liberate us? Really?
That line, I can't tell you how many times I heard rhetoric like that back in the alt-right of yore. And I'm not even talking the Trump era. I'm talking 2010 through 2015 into the Maidan. It was the joke, it's going to be Red Dawn, but it will be good. The Red Dawn has a happy ending. So Putin's tanks roll in, but they're welcomed as liberators.
This is what the QAnon people say, too. They say Trump is a white hat working with Trump to destroy the deep state and taking out the Khazarian Ukrainian cabal.
Yes. But the fact that now obviously people can come up with jokes on their own independently, that is, but the fact that this stuff was so prevalent in the alt-right and now is mainstream talking points, it's just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, what are you like? Bunch of pro-Putler, bunch of Putlers, because they like to quantify it. I'll tell you this.
I wish we had a leader.
We are Christians that we hear a world leader talk about the Holy Scriptures, not in a manner that's denigrating, not that it's like a characteristic of an extremist or a terrorist. That's our government's position right now.
Yeah, because there's no Christians in America that speak highly of the Gospels. Please.
Right.
Please. And there's a whole thread of them shilling for Putin.
Every politician of both parties speak highly of the Gospels.
Yeah.
And say all the same crap that that Putin does as well about how great the Bible is and, you know, how you need faith and all that kind of stuff. It's just such bullshit. Like Kamala Harris does that.
Here's this one. This is funny. Now, Russia-funded journalist Tyler Hansen was detained for this. So he works for Tenet Media, terror alarm, which I think might be, it's like Zionist, I want to say. Russia-funded journalist Tyler Hansen was detained for the terrorist act against John Bolton by accusing the American hero of genocide of the Iraqi people and lying about WMDs. He actually says something about Assange as well, which ties in the Russian thing. Nuance Bro asks, please provide evidence of Russian funding. Well, I guess you got your evidence. This guy's being funded by Russia.
Nuance Bro is friends with Lauren Southern as well.
Oh, really?
The Degree, and Lisa, who's the booker for Tim Pool. There's a lot.
And Cassandra Fairbanks, who's the other booker for Tim Pool, who worked for Russian Sputnik.
An absolute Russian employee, in fact. And they're all in this. Posobiac's another one who's extremely suspicious.
Here's you calling out Candace Owens in March of 2022. Candace Owens, she says, Ukraine wasn't a thing until 1989. You say, a lot of mainstream commentators have reacted to this saying she's ignorant. Candace Owens is not ignorant. She's been given pro-Russian talking points, and any effective talking point has at least some basis in reality. These were your talking points in 2014.
Same thing 2 years ago. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. I think I noticed this when, because there is, look, you can make a sort of tendentious historical argument about why Ukraine doesn't exist or whatever. The reality is that it exists now. This is the dynamic. And after this war, Ukrainian identity and nationalism will be fortified beyond belief. But yeah, you can make these tendentious arguments. They have some sort of kernel of truth to them, but they're ultimately deceptive. The reason why I think I tweeted this out was because I saw this was back when she was still with the Daily Wire, and she had a show called Candace. And it was almost like Oprah-like show. And she had on Jack Posobiec as her foreign policy expert. And when I saw that in 2022, it was uncanny. It was like unnerving, because everything that I had heard, every talking point that I had heard from my ex-wife say, or every talking point that I had echoed on social media or on podcasts, every talking point that I had read at various webzines was now being reiterated verbatim by a black lady working for Ben Shapiro. And Jack Posobiec was there as her, overseer. It was truly scary. It was creepy, in fact.
You say what's important is that 8 years ago it was people like you that were saying these things. Now they're matriculated to figures that are communicating to mainstream Republicans. Totally nailed it. And Lauren Chen would be a perfect example of that. Yeah. And Candace Owens, look at this. Candace Owens is funded by the same Gold Co., Jewish-owned gold merchant company that funds Stu Peters.
Well, I don't understand, Adam. So why would a Jew promote America's foremost anti-Semite? Like, explain that to me.
Because they're discrediting kosher opposition would be my answer.
Yes.
Because they make anti-Semites look retarded. They keep everybody on the Judeo reservation and play the Christian villain role.
Yes. And to boot, they claim that the Jews aren't, in fact, Jews.
Right. Yes. They say that Khazarian disinfo, flat earth disinfo, dinosaurs are fake disinfo. And that's something you said in your video with JFG. You said they want to fragment your brain into 1,000 pieces and have everybody confused and demoralized. And that's totally true what they're doing.
Yes.
So Stu Peters with Dugan.
Oh my.
Dugan says he wants to arm nukes with all of the enemies of the West, by the way. And he says Kabbalah is like great tradition of humans. He wants the end times. He's like encouraging and egging on these Abrahamic apocalyptic prophecies because they include the destruction of Western civilization. Putin's blaming Not Israel and Jewish supremacy, but America's foreign policy for what's going on in Palestine.
Yes.
Perfect scapegoating like all the leftist Marxist pro-Palestine people do. They say it's white supremacy and it's Zionism, not Judaism, or it's, like Dave Smith said recently, Israel is the proxy of America.
Joe Biden and the American empire.
Right.
Or whatever, right? Yeah.
Christian says, no Mossad agent would sincerely confess Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. I beg to differ. I think that's the number one thing Mossad agents would do to control their opposition. This guy, too, Phil Godowski, and we're wrapping it up real quick. I'm going rapid fire just to get to this. This guy says here that he's worth $75 million. He got his start promoting QAnon, Trump shilling, Putin shilling, and Flat Earth shilling, and he's worth $75 million, also sponsored by Goldco. You heard of this guy?
I've never heard of him.
Listen to this.
How do you make that much money as a grifter?
Goldco, and shoveling goy slop into cultist minds.
Well, shortly after this post, if I'm thinking of when it was, my viewership and subscribers went from about 7 or 8 million to 17 or 18.
Okay. Phil, you reported recently, couple months back, 2 months back, I think it was, that you're now worth $50 million. Do you remember that post?
At the time, yes.
Yeah.
Now he says it's 75. He's got his diamond chain cross there. With videos like this, Trump to say, oh, wait, that's my video. Hold on. Sorry. This one. Putin to declare war on Israel, which actually is the...
Just play a little bit of this. If it's a highlight, I don't know.
It's 5 minutes. Hold on, this one's shorter. Putin will straighten Israel problems out as well. You want to watch that one?
Hop onto the theory let's just watch a little bit. Currently a war going on in Israel. Were there attacks? Maybe. Were they recently? I don't know about that either. That's not the point. The point is, Q said we're saving Israel for last. This is the event that Q was talking about. Except Hamas, Hezbollah, in this little war they got going on over there between, what seems like a rook versus a pawn. Well, that rook's about to meet the queen. And her name is Vladimir Putin. And President Xi, he's just going to make sure nobody interferes. Now, that's really going to change the narrative, right? And what you're going to see then is a lot.
So Putin's been saving Israel for last. Putin's cutting off the head of the snake of the Khazarian New World Order. This guy's worth 75 million shilling Flat Earth, Jesus, QAnon, Trump, and Putin.
Do you think he believes it?
No.
No,
I don't
he
actually.
Probably doesn't.
I don't at all.
He probably doesn't.
75 to 100 million from Goldco sponsors. Here he is on Rumble, 200,000 followers. QAnon leader inadvertently outs himself as a groomer. QAnon leader Phil Godowski. I hadn't even heard of this guy until I saw him streaming.
Never heard of him. I've even researched QAnon and read one of those books on it.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up there. I got to pee. I've had to pee for 45 minutes, and I told Richard 2 hours, so sorry we went over.
No, this is great. I'm really glad we had this talk. I hope this gets out there, and I hope some people in your audience can also put up some clips as well of like little sections of it on Twitter, because this is really important that people hear this.
Yeah, I always encourage people to clip. Yes, if you guys want to see Spencer talk about his ex-Dugan translator wife, we talked about that on the last stream, or tune into his podcast and ask him that, because we're out of time for the topic today. But it's been no secret. He's spoken a lot about that. That's why I said he has a unique former insider perspective on all of this.
Yeah.
That's why he's here, basically. But I can let you go. I have like 4 super chats to read if you got to get going. I just got to read these real quick.
Oh, just read them.
Okay. Goaty Lane for 10 says, "Hail Prince Herman of the Chequerus. Of this day of remembrance, Herman defeated the Roman commander Varus in the Teutoburg forest, holding Christianity out of Germania for another 800 years under Charlemagne." Hey, that's a day I would like to celebrate fighting the Christians from taking over the Vikings. Sleep Cyber Army says, thank you, Adam, for the show. What if the real conspiracy with YouTube is that it was taken over by CIA operatives and genuine voices like yours were pushed out? Well, that's for sure what's happened. Pure Blood says, bring in al-Bashai and hold his feet to the fire about Putin shilling. I would love to. I have before. And Archie says, is promoting a multipolar world, non-intervention, and semi-isolationist in ideology of America first or American? Limburg was America first, thus accused of being 1930s Germany sympathizer. No, those are, people come to those conclusions.
Sympathetic towards Nazi Germany as well. Let's just be honest here.
Oh, he was. Yeah, for sure.
I like to cut to the chase of these things. Yeah. It's not like he was an outright Nazi or something like this, but he clearly was sympathetic towards Hitler. Let's just be honest. Everyone has a bias. Everyone there's an angle to what you're saying, and I fully affirm that many people are genuine libertarians and genuinely anti-war. I don't deny that, but the issue is your positions do have consequences, and there are people who are going to benefit from some perverted version of your libertarianism in order to promote their agenda. There is nothing in the world that Russia wants more than a sort of delegitimized NATO and people thinking that, Putin's attacking the biolabs and NATO is evil and turning you gay and all that kind of stuff. That's exactly what they want.
Right. And even if there are sincere people for totally genuine reasons have some of these views, those are the people that Russia wants to boost, to fund, or hire and further, use them. So that's kind of the way it is too. There's genuinely anti-war people, but the anti-war people, if we're in war with Russia, that's who they're going to fund. That's just kind of the way the world works.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for the support. Thank you, Richard Spencer, for joining me to talk about all of this. Give your plugs where people can find your...
Yeah, well, just find me on Twitter. That's the easiest way. And then on Substack, it's called Alexandria. But if you search my name, you'll also find me. Look forward to seeing you.
Cool. All right. Thank you, everybody. Let us know what you think in the comments. No Putin shills. We don't care about your propaganda in there. And I will see you guys again very soon. Have a nice day and take care. Sorry, went over, man.